So, dear learners, in our previous lecture, we discussed the meaning of equality. We tried to understand how equality developed, why equality was claimed because there was inequality in the society. Equality will be claimed only when there is inequality in the society. So that the logical connection between inequality and equality we have to understand. Then we also found that rights, liberty, and equality are interconnected, and that is why they overlap. So liberty, rights, and equality, they go together. We discussed that the today, if you see the international treaties on human rights, declarations, conventions, etc., or national constitutions, we find that equality and the principle of non-discrimination is emphasized, and therefore it has been accepted universally that you know equality and non-discrimination should be the integral component of or integral part of all human rights treaties, discourse, and narratives. Now, and we also found that how difficult it is to define equality, because equality is not an absolute concept, rather it is a relative concept. Now we are going to discuss few definitions. For example, Raphael says the right to equality proper is a right to the equal satisfaction of basic human needs, including the need to develop and use capacities which are specifically human. So it means, what does it mean? In the light of this definition, what he is trying to make us understand, the right to equality proper is a right to the equal satisfaction of basic human needs, first of all. The basic human needs, for example, shelter, clothes, etc., or food, shelter, cloth, and other basic needs of the human beings, that there should be equal satisfaction of basic human needs. It means that when there is a conflict between the right to wine and right to water, that is a conflict, then right to water will be given preference. Why? Because wine is not the part and parcel of the basic need in that sense. So therefore, equal satisfaction of basic human needs, that is one, including the need to develop and use capacities, whatever potential that the people have got or the capacities they have got, there should be equality of opportunity to develop those capacities. It means, that should be available to all the people. There are some people who are best suited for a particular kind of job, but since they belong to a particular caste, race, community, or place of birth, or the complexion is different, it doesn't mean that they should not be given opportunity to develop the potential that they have got. So this is the reason that Raphael says the right to equality proper is a right to the equal satisfaction of basic human needs, including the need to develop and use capacities which are specifically human. E.H. Carrot maintains equality is just to treat men as equal until some reason other than preference such as need, capacity, or desert has been shown to the contrary. So what he is saying, equality is just to treat men as equal. All human beings should be treated equal. But he is also accepting that until some reason other than preference such as need, capacity, or desert has been shown for the contrary. It means that according to him, equality should not be construed in absolute sense of the term. And that is why some other things may be taken into consideration for giving some kind of different treatment or a special treatment to people that he is accepting. Another important thinker, political scientist of the 20th century, Harold J. Lasky, maintains that equality means the following. Number one, according to Lasky, end of special privileges in the society. End of special privileges in the society. For example, why French Revolution came? Because nobility at that time had special privileges. Similarly, in our own country, if we see the history, some people, for example, people of the upper caste had, of course, special privileges. Similarly, people belonging to the feudal families, they had special privileges. People from the royal blood, they had special privileges. So when special privileges were there, so that is why the beauty of the Constitution of India, abolition of untouchability, at the same time abolition of titles. All those titles who were making them some people very special or privileged. So ultimately, end of special privileges in the society. Number one, special privileges. Why Gandhi was thrown out of the train? Because he could not travel in the first class compartment, which was only for the Europeans, for the white people. So it means that when you see that the white regime that was there in our own country, the Britishers, they were discriminating against Indians. So special privileges were there for the white people, whereas the Indians were treated in a different manner. So that is why he is suggesting, Harold J. Lasky is suggesting that end of special privileges is necessary for creating equality in the society. Secondly, according to him, adequate opportunities are laid open to all, and each may develop his personality. Adequate opportunities are laid open to all. This all is important. So the adequate opportunities we have in our Constitution of India, we have equality of opportunities. Equal opportunities are there for all the people. And, as I mentioned, that a state shall not discriminate against individuals on the basis of religion, caste, creed, sex, place of birth, etc. So, adequate opportunities are laid open to all, and each may develop his personality. Not only this, but we have also included in our own Constitution the special rights or preferential treatment, what we call affirmative action or rational discrimination, positive discrimination, for creating that kind of equality for the historically disadvantaged groups. Certain preferential treatment are given. So adequate opportunities are laid open to all, and each may develop his personality. Third, all must have access to what? Number one, social benefits, according to him, and no one should be restricted on any ground. All social benefits should be open to all the people. All must have access to it. All the social benefits, they should be open to all the people. There should not be any discrimination. And lastly, he says that absence of economic and social exploitation. Economic and social exploitation should not be there. Otherwise, equality cannot be created or established in the society. Economic exploitation, as we found that, according to Marx, it was there in capitalism when the working class was being exploited by the capitalist class. So, that economic exploitation. In our own country, we had the system of bonded labor. Bonded labor is one of the worst kind of economic exploitation that we can, imagine. Similarly, equal pay for equal wages were not given to women, and women were discriminated against. So that is also what is economic exploitation. And social exploitation, economic and social, that go together accordingly. So that is why upward mobility was not there. There were certain professions in which people from some other segments of the historically disadvantaged groups, former untouchables, they were not allowed to join those kind of profession. So ultimately, that if absence of economic and social exploitation is not there, then people are not going to enjoy equality, according to Lasky. So in the light of the above discussion, in light of the above discussion, we can understand that equality as equality among equals and inequality among unequals. So, in a nutshell, what can we understand by equality? Equality means equality among equals and inequality among unequals. Equality among equals, it means that all the people, those who are going to compete for any kind of job, so it means some kind of a special treatment when they all are equal, not historically disadvantaged group. That should not be given to some people or some segment. So, in the same kind of situation, if they have been placed, then it will be decided on the basis of the merit. So, equality among equals. But if there are certain people who have been suffering from centuries of exploitation and all, so ultimately some kind of preferential treatment can be given to them. So, by that way, we can say that equality among equals and inequality among unequals. We also understand absolute equality irrespective of circumstances, and special needs will create more inequalities rather than creating equality. So if we try to interpret equality in the absolute sense of the term, and we start demanding identical treatment or a process of homogenization that should be started by the state, then that will create more inequalities in the society. So that is why it is to be understood as a relative term, and keeping in view the diversity of the situation, we will find people are to be treated keeping in view the circumstances under which they have been passing through. Now we are going to discuss the development of the concept of equality, or you can say evolution of the concept of equality. First of all, you see, during ancient times, it was a perennial feature of all societies that inequality was considered natural. What the natural earth theory is saying, that human beings are born free and equal. But in the ancient times, you will find that in most of the societies of the world, inequality was considered natural, and special privileges were justified for the dominant sections of society. For example, the Greek city state, we say that, the Greek political thought was based on reason, it was rational in nature. But you'll find the rationalization of inequality over there. Rational justification for inequality in the Greek system you'll find. So Plato and Aristotle, both great political philosophers, they supported inequality. They justified inequality. Rather, they believed inequality was natural. There are some people, according to them, there were some people destined to be ruler because they had wisdom, they had reason. Whereas some people who were having courage, they were destined to be warrior, according to them. They also justified slavery. So, according to them, inequality was natural. Some people were destined to be rulers, some people were destined to be ruled. Similarly, in our country, you will find that a hierarchical caste system was maintained, and some people were considered as superior and others were considered as inferior. So, it was the perennial feature of all the societies in the ancient times. During the medieval period, you will find inequality based on birth and blood was a common feature. So, the feudal lords had a lot of privileges that was justified. Similarly, you will find that the people from the royal blood, they were, having special privileges. Similarly, the people coming from the race of the king or the rulers, they were considered or they were given a special, treatment, favorable treatment. So ultimately, that had created inequality. You will find that during the medieval period, the feudal and other privileges were considered legitimate. However, Christianity gave the call for equality. The Christianity gave a message. In Europe, of course, Christianity believes an egalitarian religion, Christianity is. So that is why Christianity gave a call for equality of all human beings. That is inherent in the principle or teachings of Christianity. So equality is justified. It is an egalitarian religious and spiritual tradition. Equality of all human beings is a perennial feature of the teachings of Christianity. So that is why it said that everybody is equal. But you'll find later on what happened, that this equality was claimed as equality before God, not equality before the law. So it was equality before God. In church everybody was equal. In the eyes of God everybody was equal. Not in the social and political spaces everybody was equal. In modern times, from the 18th and 19th centuries, the voices for equality were raised. Demands for civil, political, economic, and social rights emphasized the equality of all. When the people, raised their voices, they were fascinated by the idea of liberty, equality, fraternity, rights, and that's why they brought many revolutions. Many revolutions, many attempts to bring revolution and establish equality had already failed, and those failed revolutions were regarded as a revolt and people were punished. So that is why we should not forget the difference between the revolt and the revolution. That, if the revolt is successful, it becomes revolution. But, if it is not successful, then the people are oppressed, persecuted, and that happened. It means that liberty, equality, rights that we have achieved, in 18th and 19th century, before that, our forefathers had given a lot of sacrifices. So it is something that was, achieved after a long struggle and after a lot of sacrifices. So that is why in the 18th and 19th century, civil, political, economic, and social rights emphasizing equality were demanded and proclaimed and achieved. Here it should be mentioned that gender equality is a late entrant. Gender equality, why? Earlier you'll find in the 19th century especially, or before that, women were not considered fit for political wisdom. So that is why voting right was denied to them despite democracies established in many countries of Europe. So voting right was not available to them. It was not given to them. So that is why, thanks to feminist movements, the movement that were launched, and gender equality was demanded, and finally you will find that in the 20th century now universal adult suffrage is there. So all human beings who have attained a particular age, in the case of India, in our own country, it is 18 years of age. So all those who have attained the age of 18 years, they are having voting right. That is political right, and that is without any gender discrimination. There cannot be any discrimination on the ground of gender. So that is why we find that gender equality is a late entrant. Now, after this, after discussing the development of equality, the demand for equality, we will go for legal equality, the dimensions of equality. That is legal equality, number one. Number two, political equality. Number three, social equality. And number four, economic equality. These are the four dimensions of equality. When we are mentioning, these four dimensions of equality, we have to take into account, the development of equality in different societies of the world. According to Marx, we will find earlier, in the very beginning, people were living in the primitive society, and at that time everybody was equal. Similarly, according to Rousseau, in the state of nature, when the noble savage were living, there was absolute kind of equality, and that is why it was a paradise like a state of nature. But you will find with the development of or emergence of family and private property, according to many thinkers, you will find that inequality developed. And this is the reason that when Plato is trying to visualize an ideal state in his magnum opus, The Republic, you'll find that he is imposing certain conditions. He said that in the ideal state, what should happen? That there should be communism of property and wives for the guardian class. So the upper two classes, that is the class was called guardian class, those who were representing wisdom and reason means rulers, and the warriors or auxiliaries, they were not allowed to go for permanent monogamous marriage. Rather, there should be communism of wives or women according to Plato. Similarly, communism of property. It means they will hold everything in common. They will not have their own private property. And since there will be communism of wives, so that is why they will not have their family. Because when people are having family, they will try to accumulate for the future generation, and that will make them corrupt, according to Plato. So in this sense, you will find that from primitive society to the different societies, you will find that, for example, serfdom was there where the master and slave relations were developed. Masters were exploiting the slaves. Then you will find different stages. From the different perspective, you will find that inequalities were there in most of the societies. The dominant section, those who are having power in their hands, they try to perpetuate inequalities by claiming certain special privileges for them, special rights for them. So that's why the struggle was already there. Slaves revolted first of all. You will find that the peasantry revolted against the land exploitation of the landlords. You will find many revolutions came against the exploitation of the capitalist class. So all these are the examples. They wanted equality. So now there are four dimensions of equality that we are going to discuss. Number one is legal equality. Legal equality, it means equality before the law and equal protection of law. So it means legal equality means that in the eyes of law, everybody will be equal. Law will not discriminate against any person on the ground of religion, caste, creed, sex, place of birth, etc. So every individual is equal in the eyes of law, and law will be blindly applied upon all, irrespective of his or her, belonging to particular caste, creed, sex, place of birth, etc. So that is legal equality. This legal equality, now this is the perennial feature of all the laws of the different parts of the world, that everybody is equal. So in the eyes of law, everybody is equal. That is legal equality. It is equality before the law and equal protection of law. Now, after legal equality, we have political equality. Political equality, we can say that every universal adult franchise is the best example of political equality, where everybody has been given the voting right if he or she has attained the age of 18 years. In our country, it may be 20, 21 years in the different countries of the world. But the political equality can be achieved only in democracies. It is not possible to achieve political equality without democracy. So it means political equality, democracy is a necessary condition for political equality. There are people who may say that, in the dictatorship of the proletariat, also equality is achieved. That is a very different point, and the context is different. Here, what we have to understand that political equality means equal voting right. It means all the people having right to contest elections, and all political opportunities are laid open to all without any discrimination. So in our country, anybody who has attained a particular age, 25 years or 30 years, he or she can become the member of Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha, can contest the assembly elections and all. And all position from, legislator, from an panchayat to the office of the Prime Minister is open to all the Indians. That is the example of political equality. Why this political equality is important to understand? You will find it was not available earlier. Earlier, politics was something that was just like the game of chess played by the Rajas, Nawaz, princes, and people from the royal family. It was not for the masses. Masses were advised to stay away from the political matters. It was very dangerous too during the days of feudal lords and the absolute monarchies. So that is why at that time political equality was not possible. So political equality was achieved or was claimed with the movement for democracy and the accountability of the rulers toward the people. Hereditary rulership will not be there. So that is why that is called political equality. After the social equality, that in the society, there will be nothing like a special privileges for some people, and there will be nothing like some kind of baggage imposed upon some segments. So social equality means in the society the social spaces should be shared by all without any discrimination. So untouchability, for example, that was the manifestation of inequality, social inequality. Gender discrimination against social inequality. Discrimination on the ground of religion, caste, creed, sex, place of birth. For example, if some people were not allowed to dine with others, that was social inequality. So today, when we say social equality, it means social spaces should be shared by all and social opportunities should be laid open to all the people without any discrimination. That is called social equality. In South Africa, for example, earlier, you will find during the days of apartheid, social equality was not possible. Similarly, in our own country, during the British colonialism, social equality was not possible. Why? There were certain pathways that were reserved only for the white people. Indians were not allowed. So, all these are the example of social inequalities. After that, we have economic equality. If you remember, dear learners, the Marxian theory of rights, we discussed the base and superstructure logic. And we discussed that legal, political, social, intellectual, all structures according to Marx are superstructure. And the base or the foundation is economic structure. So if we apply the base and superstructure logic here, we can say that all equalities, legal equality, political equality, social equality are part and parcel of the superstructure. And the main thing that is foundation is economic equality. So legal, political and social equality cannot be realized in true sense of the term if economic equality is not there. So economic equality doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean that the people, those who are doing some kind of job, everybody will be paid same kind of, wages. No, it is not economic equality. But, what does it mean economic equality? It means that when the people are doing some kind of job, they will be adequately paid. At the same time, economic equality means that nobody should be economically so dominant that he is in a position to exploit others. It means there should not be anything like that, inequality are such that there are some people totally dependent upon the rich people. So that is why here the intervention of the state is very, very important. That the state has to go for the leveling process. State is charging progressive taxation, imposing tax, and then the tax go to the national exchequer, and that is why the poor people, destitute, and the people who are dependent, those people who are not in a position to eat anything, so they are supported. So all the poverty elevation program that have been started by the government of India, different kind of yojanas that we have in our country, for example, Prime Minister Awas Yojana, and other poverty elevation programs, they all these programs have been adopted to create what is called economic equality in the society. So, in this sense, these all other inequalities cannot be addressed if economic equality is not established in the society, it is not created. After this, we will try to conclude our discussion for today. In the light of the discussion that we made, we discussed about the meaning, the definitions, and then the dimensions and the development or the evolution of the concept of equality. We found that equality is a relative concept and cannot be construed in an absolute sense. This we have already noticed that it is a relative concept. And we also discussed that the diversity of situation is very, very important while trying to understand equality. So certain people may be better placed and certain people may be coming from the historically disadvantaged groups. So ultimately, the principle of equality will be applied keeping in view the diversity of situation and circumstances. Again, equality has evolved over centuries of struggle. That also we should remember. That, after the primitive society, when the inequality came in the society, right from the very beginning, people have been struggling to achieve the goal of equality. And that's why, our forefathers had given a lot of sacrifices for achieving what we call equality today. At least in principle, we accept that everybody should be having the equality of opportunity. Whether the states have been able to create that kind of equality or not, but in principle, we have already agreed upon. So that universal acceptance to the principle of equality itself is a great achievement. All dimensions of equality are important. Again, in the absence of one, others cannot be realized. It means, you cannot say that political equality is more important than the social equality, or social equality is more important than the economic equality. All, dimensions of equality are important and they all go together. For example, in the absence of economic equality, it will be difficult for the people to realize or enjoy social and political and legal equality. Legal equality, why? Because law law can be applied equally for on all the people, but the people with money and the people with a lot of wealth, they have of course advantages. For example, the rich people can hire best of lawyers in the courts of law, and from the lower court to high courts to Supreme Court they can drag a case, whereas this cannot be afforded by a poor person. The poor person is not in a position to pay the fees of the lawyer, which is very high in the Supreme Court or the High Court. So, of course, the free legal aid is there, but you will find that the quality of the lawyers will not be same. Again, incentive and progress you have to see. The commitment of the lawyers in these kind of cases may not be as the commitment of the lawyers who are going to plead the case with a lot of money and fee they are charging. So that is why even in this sense we will find political, economic, social and legal equality, they all go together, and all the dimensions of equality are important and one cannot be compromised for others. With this, we come to conclude our discussion on equality. And dear learners, we are going to have our discussion tomorrow or in our next lecture on justice. Justice, meaning and its dimensions we will be discussing in the next lecture. Thank you very much. For this, equality and liberty, you can study the book by M.P. Jain, Political Theory, O.P. Gauba, Political Theory. These are good books that or any book of political theory, you will find these are the basic concepts. They are available in most of the books on political theory. Thank you very much.